you think you're, like you're supposed to feel like great all the time, but actually 1/3 of the time you will feel like crap, 1/3 of the time you will feel okay, and 1/3 of the time you will feel great. And if you sometimes, have those moments of shit is hitting a fan, or you don't know, if this is gonna ever become big or not, then I think it's just one of those days where you just need to show up, and it's just one of those prep days. And there will be also better days, as part of the journey. And I think if you feel that, then it's also just showing that you're growing, and you're doing something which is just out of your comfort zone. But that again means also you're personally, growing as a person as well.
Hey Jen, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for the invite. Super excited to chat today.
Yeah, me too, me too. I know we've had the chance to chat a few times, but I really loved your story. I think there's a lot of overlap between our backgrounds, both working in VC as well as doing content creation on the side. So really wanted to be able to share your story with other people, and I think there's a lot that people can get out of this conversation.
Yeah, excited to share a little bit more about the founder journey and about Passionfruit as well.
Perfect. Well, I'd love to start with the person behind the business. Would love to hear about your background. I know it's pretty unique, coming from Singapore and also now living in Germany. So would love to kind of just hear about your early life as well as everything that led up to founding Passion Fruit.
So my parents came from Vietnam actually to Germany, and I was working then in Singapore for a while. But I was actually born in Germany, and yeah, went then to Singapore to work there as a venture developer. Explored, like at some point different startup ideas. Also supported as a venture developer, founding actually different startups, and set up also operations for Global Founders Capital, which is a VC fund in Southeast Asia, and sourced investments across that region. And yeah, loved, like working with founders, and just working very hands on as well. And returned back to Europe, and yeah, I found myself working as a VC investor first, early stage, investing across pre-seed to Series A companies, and really, really loved it. And started though in 2020 to create content and to write my own tech newsletter. And that's in the end what led me to founding Passion Fruit. But yeah, happy to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm curious, how did you first get into just venture, like building itself? Did you always know you wanted to do that? Did you study that in college, something related to entrepreneurship and tech, or was that something that you kind of just found as you were looking for jobs once you graduated?
Yeah, I mean, I started business, so management, and actually, I think one thing that definitely shaped me was my parents. So immigrated. Actually, they're immigrants. They immigrated in the late '80s to Germany, and they're actually small business owners, and they were, entrepreneurs themselves. They built up, everything from scratch in a country that was very foreign to them, and I think that was kind of what always has inspired me. And what's super interesting though is that I think they definitely, became entrepreneurs out of necessity because they also didn't have, access to opportunities otherwise. But for me, and that was a big, realization. The being entrepreneur is something that definitely resonated with me. But for me, it's not less about necessity, but more about actually, yeah, self realization and realizing myself, which is a very different type of entrepreneurship as well. But I think that's why I was though very, very always like keen on at some point founding my own company. And I think venture building itself, you basically are able to create such an impact, right, on the society, amongst like users. You can shape whole industries with that. And I think just like my parents who gave me basically as immigrant parents, like lots and lots of opportunities. And I know that I was more privileged than them. I felt also kind of this, I don't know, like responsibility to do something with that privilege, right? And I think entrepreneurship is just also definitely venture capital and also entrepreneurship, I think, are two avenues to actually really, have an impact and use your privilege quite wisely as well.
Definitely. And that's kind of how I feel about venture as well, where I really have an outsized impact on helping early stage founders build these great businesses that have a real difference in people's lives. I also have like a similar background where not my parents, but my dad's side, his parents, they were entrepreneurs. They were a restaurant business, and ultimately they ran that themselves for about 30 years, and my dad kind of like followed his footsteps but took a different route. But that's always been something that's been an inspiration for me, not just doing content creation on the side, but eventually wanting to build a business one day. So it's really great that you took that chance and are building a business yourself after getting experience in the space. Well, I'd love to kind of unpack more about the content creation side of things now. I know you created a weekly newsletter. I believe it was called Tech for Good. Would love to kind of hear like the motivations behind that and how that experience gave you the desire to want to build Passionfruit.
Yeah, for sure. So it was 2020. I was working as a venture capital investor, and like had this again like amazing exposure to different startups, business models, founders, and I loved it. I think VC is definitely one of the most privileged jobs you can have because you're actually getting paid to learn. And that was that was like super exciting for me, for someone who's just super curious and loves to learn about, different industries and digging deeper into like different business models, technologies. And 2020 obviously was a very yeah, significant year, obviously around the world. But I think it also did something, or it shook up a lot of people to really, really ask themselves what they actually want to do. And I think for me at that time, everything that was going on around the pandemic, Black Lives Matter, climate crisis, Asian hate crimes, there were so many things, and also seeing the lack in diversity in venture capital, from my side as well, and in the tech space, I really felt the need to kind of like express myself. And basically starting, like the Tech for Good newsletter just gave me a way to share, like my whatever I was seeing in the industry, share technologies, share everything that has a positive impact on our society and environment, and also share my own perspective actually on things. And it helped me to kind of like just share my own voice and actually also express myself creatively. And I really love that process of, doing something on your own and creating your own brand, actually also connecting with like-minded people who actually really, resonated with my content. I'm sure you have that too, right? People then reaching out and really connecting to that. And I love that. And I loved it so much that I even considered quitting my, job as a VC, and pursuing basically this full time and becoming a full time creator, which was crazy at that point because you actually, I think, I mean, years before you didn't even really consider that as a path, right? Or as a career path. And, yeah, from there I just talked to a lot of friends who had like, or other creators who had like a podcast or a newsletter, and asked them how they monetize, how they manage their business. Realized in the end that this is a completely shift in our society. So many people are, like creating content gets easier and easier. The second thing is making money from it, from your passion, in that sense, also gets, like more democratized and easier. And there are millions of people who are actually, like on the rise of becoming creators, or are already creators. But they are, there's a lack of tooling for that new generation of entrepreneurs, basically. And with that, I, reflected, and in the end thought that the impact I could create could be probably bigger if I start now this company and empower this new generation of entrepreneurs instead of being a creator myself. So in the end, that's how I ended up not becoming a creator, but now building for them instead with Passionfruit.
Yeah, I love that because you feel like you are actually empowering more creators to build a business. And one thing that I realized doing content creation on the side is it's really like you're your own entrepreneur. Like you're a solo founder, like bootstrapped, having to create something of yourself with little to no support. So that's definitely a pain that I felt. Not just having to constantly be creative and come up with new content ideas, but also how do you actually monetize that, and how do you actually grow a business from what you're putting out there. So I think that's awesome to hear that you guys that you experienced that problem yourself and actually started building something. So I'd love to hear like what were like the first steps that you started taking in actually building the products. I know you came from a venture building background, but curious, did you use like no code tools or did you found a technical founder to kind of help you first building that MVP?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, I had co-founders, and we also hired, like then the first engineers, who built the first MVP. In the beginning, actually, we did. So first of all, we talked to hundreds of creators first. So really, like tons of user interviews. Then we built a prototype on Figma, and just iterated from there, and continued basically to iterate on our like solution, and set up a landing page to also see like what's the interest, in terms of in terms of that kind of like solution as well. So I think the kind of like standard things you're doing just to kind of like get the first steps in started. And then from there, what obviously had was, we raised a first round. So we raised our first pre-seed round, actually mainly on a pitch deck, um, and obviously like tons of user research validation for that, a prototype that we had, etc. And then from there, that helped us to like hire the first engineers, who then also started to kind of like build the first like MVP. So it was definitely like an kind of like a organic process through that. And even when we started with the first like engineers and the founding team, even then, right, we still had to validate, basically if there's a need for that solution. And given that we started to build a vertical SaaS for creators, which by nature is very broad, right? We had like, similar to Shopify, you create a storefront, we have like payments as a flow, you have the collaboration part, so tons of things. So where do you start basically? And we definitely use also Webflow and different no-code tools basically to build step by step and validate step by step basically our the problem, that there is a need for that problem, but and also the solution. From there we start to onboard the first users and obviously just iterate, and try to get as much feedback as possible.
I think there's a lot to unpack there. I'd love to kind of go back to like the user interviews and everything that you've done like before raising the pre-seed. Did you get people to sign up or like do like a wait list and get like a amount of people to kind of essentially commit to wanting to sign up to the platform even before you raise that round?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, we started with like tons and tons of user research interviews, and we didn't present any solution also there yet. We were very broad. We had like some assumptions around the problem space, around monetization and how they manage, their business. But we were still super broad. Then from there, we, formed kind of like a thesis around a potential solution. Started to test that with wireframes, started to get design partners, with with those creators, and then set up basically a wait list where we collect, email addresses, and just check also what's the demand like, and then from based on that we raised basically then our first round.
Got it. And when it comes to reaching out to a lot of these creators, was that something that you relied on your existing mailing list to contact them? Because I feel like a lot of like new businesses, they have like some sort of content engine that they can tap into to kind of use that as like a organic marketing engine for building a business. Or was it more like you reached out cold on LinkedIn or like on Instagram and then you just started having conversations that way?
Yeah, it was a mix of like the own network, obviously. So just starting to talk with people from like the network, or like friends of friends, or people I knew, or newsletter writers or podcasters, etc. And then from there, obviously trying to leverage also their network, asking for recommendations, reaching out cold to people as well. But it was in the beginning really all just about like would be great to have a chat. I'm like exploring the space, and then actually from there, you start also to build kind of then the waitlist as well, right? And then you launch it more widely, but that's kind of the first steps on how you get started.
Got it. And I noticed in your pre-seed you had notable angel investors like Ali Abdal. As many people know, one of the like most popular YouTube creators today. How did you end up like getting him on your cap table, and how did you kind of like build out this first pre-seed round? I think a lot of new first-time founders don't really know what to do in raising money for the first time. So, love to kind of just get your perspective and thoughts on like how that went for you.
I think obviously what definitely helped is that I was sitting on the other side. So at least, I knew the rules of the game. That obviously doesn't mean that I know how to play the game. I was never on the field, but at least, I was a coach on the side. I know the rules. That definitely helped just to be very intentional also about the fundraise. So I knew kind of, like what investors are usually like looking for, how to build up a good process, how to build up, like the deck. I was very, though, for me it was very important to I was very intentional about like how I wanted to structure the round, which is having like one or two VC investors, and then also actually a community of angel investors. And that also should have been, should be a mix of founders who can share their experiences, operators, but also creators. A lot of actually our of our investors are creators themselves, like Ali Abdal, um, and oftentimes never have made even startup investments so far. 50% of our cap table are also either like female investors, or people with immigration backgrounds. Because for me, again, going back to impact, right, and why we're doing what we're doing, is for me also to just democratize actually access to like at some point wealth, if that becomes successful. And many creators never build wealth, right, because they're not really familiar with the world, even though they're entrepreneurs, and rely though mostly on their audience, right, and on brand partnerships. So that was kind of like how I thought about it, also in terms of like values, what's the value add. So very, very intentionally. But started then first with angels, reaching out to angel investors, and then from there shifted then to VC investors. And in terms of like Ali Abdal, how we got him, that was actually through our network. So it was through the VC investor that we talked to, who invested in his brother's company. And then basically, so yeah, a lot of like warm intros. But took 5 minutes for him to understand the value, and he said, that's something he wished he would have had, and he knows hundreds of creators need. So was quite a very easy, yeah, straightforward pitch to him.
That's good. I mean, I feel like it's always like a vote of confidence when you are able to pitch something and it resonates so deeply with someone and they're willing to actually put up their own money. But I like the idea of being intentional with who you're taking money from. Um, from the other side, it's like impact investing and like really not only just thinking about like what will happen in the world, but what should happen. So I think that's a good idea of like not just investors thinking about that, but also founders thinking about who is the right person that they want to bring on as well. Awesome. And I know where the product is today, it's more of like an all-in-one platform where you're able to do anything from like having a storefront to managing communication all the way to getting paid. But when you first built out the product, what did it first look like? Because I assume it wasn't like this full-fledged product. Was there like one key feature or one like kind of wedge that you guys really focused on to kind of land with customers first?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, especially with like vertical SaaS, right? Which again, by nature, is very broad. So where do you actually start as a as an entry point? And in the end, though, we kind of focus on having actually the storefront, then some sort of like booking form or booking system, um, and the collaboration, and then payments. So four very, like kind of like the skeleton of like an end-to-end journey, because the end-to-end was so important for us. But we started out that again, like with the no code, like having actually building storefronts ourselves on Webflow for creators first manually. That was like, like the MVP. But then at some point, obviously, then launching also a version where then creators can build their own storefront. But ultimately, vertical SaaS identify basically the, like main flow, one of the main flows, because also everyone has their different workflow, right? So you at some point need to customize things, but identify the main flow and build kind of like a skeleton there. Our strategy in the end was, I mean, we started off with in the end, like the strategy of build a tool, and basically then users come for the tool and stay for the network. That's kind of like how it pin out. So we build a tool, give it away for free, creators started to onboard, started to use it. That's actually how we started then to build liquidity. And then what happened, and also the product by now, is a lot of creators started to use Passionfruit just as a tool to manage and monetize with brand partnership sponsorships, in the B2B and tech space specifically, because we see that as a completely new market category. And then what happened was that a lot of companies and brands reach out to us, and everyone is shifting now their marketing budgets actually to more like creator led go to market channels. And they all reach out to us, like companies like Superhuman, Calendly, Miro, Notion, etc., that are basically doing now more creator marketing. They reached out to us, and we got so much pull that we said, let's actually, yes, the workflow and all in one is very important to have creators manage their business. But we actually see still a huge problem in the discovery. How do actually companies and creators discover each other? Just because the market is so new and we're creating still this new market category, right? So that's actually why we expanded basically 6 7 months ago the product also more now to the company and marketer side as well.
Yeah, that's amazing how there was so much inbound interest from companies. I think a dynamic with marketplaces is it's really hard to both appeal to both. Like you have to go to market and really try to onboard them. But when one side is really coming on and saying what you've built is great, like we want to be like participating, it makes this network effect just so much easier. And I think it's great to see that the partner network kind of came alive just because you're doing something that was a huge problem for a lot of people. So you had this wait list of people, you're building out the MVP. What was it like once you launched, and how did you like continue to like do marketing? How did you kind of continue to get the word of passion fruit out? I know what you do is like inbound marketing and you have your own podcast, but would love to kind of hear like after you've launched, like what were some key things that you've done to kind of continue to grow the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think as they always say, right, do the things that don't scale, and that's pretty much true. So in the beginning, even onboarding the first users, it was pure doing, like things that don't scale. So reaching out to creators actually and trying to onboard them. So that's also still one of our like main channels. So our biggest channel is still the word of mouth. So we have like actually really interesting growth loops that we already see, in a way that once a creator who has obviously also an audience, right, of maybe other creators that follow them, they set up their storefront, they share passion fruit, just as a way to like say that they're open for brand partnerships, that you can book them here. A lot of them creators see that and basically then sign up, because they saw it with another creator. So that's like one of the best growth loops actually we have. A little bit how, for example, Calendly or Superhuman, in a way, their growth loops work. And then the second thing is still like content. We still believe very much in the power of being creators ourselves and creating like content, especially in a market where you have to do actually still where you are building a market category. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done. So content definitely is a second big factor. So case studies or podcasts, short form videos, content on LinkedIn, Twitter, uh, carousel. So yeah, we tried, like we're doing tons and tons of things here. And the third again is the direct outreach part. So those are like I would say our third three like big channels on the creator side, and on the marketer and like company side it's yeah similar. Like growth loop is definitely one that works really well. So oftentimes they actually come across Passionfruit thanks to a creator. They reach out to creators they want to partner up with. All of them are sharing actually their Passionfruit storefront, and that's basically then how that growth loops works really nicely for us. And then the second thing is also direct sales, so reaching out to marketers or founders. And then the third is also content. So I would say like those are our three biggest, yeah, our strongest channels so far.
Yeah, I think it's so smart to have the storefront. I know Linktree has been so popular and has grown so fast because people list it on their like link or their like Instagram bio, and people can click into that and it's like, oh, powered by Linktree, or like Linktree is in the URL itself. So that's how they find it themselves, and it's like this organic growth engine that continues to grow as more and more people start learning about it. And I think that's a slogan that's been said so many times, like doing things that don't scale. I know Brian Chesky, the co-founder and CEO of Airbnb, what they did was they essentially called up all their different hosts at the very early stage of the business. They flew out to New York, asking them to, or saying that like, oh, we'll take free photos for you if you would have us. They flew out to New York, and when they opened the door, it was actually the two co-founders. And of course, they took photos, but they still wanted to better understand exactly some of the pain points and really to really understand the user journey and their experience. And after having that, they felt so connected with the co-founders that they could always call them up and help kind of guide them. And I felt like that's so powerful to do things that people think is probably not the right way to go about building a business, but that's how you really truly understand your customers and what they really want.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, like we're in, all the customers can reach out to us. We're like everywhere in everyone's like inbox, Twitter, DM, Slack, email, LinkedIn, intercom. So we're definitely very, very close also to the customer here, and doing still by now a lot of manual things as well. And obviously you learn and then you productize things, right? But that's always the best way to go about it, because obviously building is very, very expensive. Yeah.
Definitely. And I feel like you guys have done a really good job of building community. Just like looking at your podcast on YouTube, like, you get good interaction. And I think it's not just like building something like a product that people want, but also like a community around it as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think like the brand, I mean, building also brand and the community, and building something that resonates not only as a product, but as a whole, right? Like a whole company. Also putting faces, right? Like in the end, it's us. And that also always resonates actually with people who really feel our presence, because we're all like very, passionate about what we're doing, and who we're serving and who we're building for, and people can feel that as well. Yeah.
You've been working on this for about 3 years now, and I'm curious, in your entire journey, has there been any key decisions or like big challenges that you faced that you feel like kind of shifted the way like passion fruit is today? Just curious if there's been anything that really stands out to you that you feel like was a big challenge that you kind of overcame and created passion fruit for the better.
Yeah, I mean, we've been on this journey now like for 2.5 years actually. But I think one challenge in the beginning was definitely actually our one of our co-founders um uh, left already quite early in the journey as well, and that definitely was a challenge, because obviously you set out to build this, in the long term together. But that was definitely a challenge. But on the other hand, I think it's important to talk about those topics as well because it is part of the journey. I think even I think there was a statistic 40-50% of startups have actually co-founder breakups. I think I saw with YC. It's very common topic, but no one really talks about it a lot, and it's part of the journey as well. And again, you always see right on LinkedIn or social media how this is very being glamorized, like oh my god, like launch here, fundraising round there, exit here. But there's a lot that goes on behind, and I think that's definitely something that was a challenge. But on the other hand, I also know, at least from statistics, that it's actually super common as well. So yeah, that helps to at least know that you're not alone with it, that it's sometimes completely normal. Hundreds of other founders run through that. That alone helps kind of to feel less alone on the journey, which is sometimes very lonely actually.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of like marriage. I feel like I've heard like half of marriages like don't actually end up lasting. So I feel like especially with like building a business, you think you're gonna build it and it scales into this like great thing, and but really like as you're living through it, there's a lot of things that come up, and it's not always what it seems like from the outside. So it's helpful for hearing your perspective on what that was like as well.
Yeah, and in the end it's about right like resilience, and I think there's so many successful founder, and when you ask them like what was kind of like your a trait you would say is super important in founders, or what was the thing that kind of made you successful. Sometimes founders, also just very successful founders, just say, well, I just didn't give up and I just was resilient and just kept on going and didn't die. I mean, the company didn't die, and just tried to survive, and that's in the end sometimes all it takes.
Yeah, I realize, behind every great business is a great founder. So a lot of the times, a common trait that I see is just having that grit, resilience, and like ability to like just be creative and figure things out. Especially at the early day, you have little to no resources, so you're pretty much doing everything yourself. And like, how scrappy can you be with like the resources that you have? I'd love to kind of just hear where the business is today. It's been a great journey so far, and how are you feeling about where the business is today? And looking in the future, what are you most excited about?
Where the business is today, I mean, we've built so far a great product that is loved by users, and we built a great foundation and a great brand. And I think where it is today, I think I'm really happy, but I'm super, super excited about where it can go now next, and how we also leverage, like obviously AI and LLMs in our product to make even the foundation that we have built and the product that we have built so far even 10 times better and more effective and faster for both creators to monetize, like even faster and better, but also for brands and companies actually to do marketing even more efficiently. And I think there's so much potential there. So there is obviously this, like very cliche common saying of we're only getting started, but I truly feel like we're only getting started. So we have a super packed, like product roadmap ahead of us. We're also gonna have more resources a bit now. Obviously our team is a bit bigger to like create also host community events and also educate the market more and more about it. So overall, just super excited to help brands and companies that are already using Passionfruit today doing their job even like faster and better, but also spreading the word about the power of creator-led marketing amongst many other new users around the world as well.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting this place that you're playing in, not just supporting creators, but also being this platform where you can take it many different angles. You're not just solving for one solid use case, but it's really the entire journey of being able to build a brand and also monetize it. So I think I'm sure the product roadmap is very packed, so I'm sure there's a lot to do, but where you guys are playing is really exciting. I think I saw a stat where most young like kids or teenagers, when they're asked what they want to do, it's actually be a content creator. So that just shows where the future is going and how the younger generation really cares about what is being done here.
No, 100%. I think, yeah, that's where it's headed. And also, you see that shift now as well on the media or brand or company side as well, right? Even B2B marketing. They're all shifting basically now, where obviously the eyeballs are, and where, like communities are, being created around creators, to reach actually their target audiences as well. So yeah, totally see that as well.
Well, I just had one more question for you. Now, looking back as you've gone throughout this journey, if you were to do it all over again, what's one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Yeah, I think the piece of advice I learned actually throughout the journey, and I still give that to myself even right now. There is this rule of one third. I don't know if you heard about it, but there was one runner who attended the Olympics, and her coach basically told her, the rule of one third, which is if you're doing something incredibly hard, and have a really, really ambitious goal, attending the Olympics as an athlete, building a company, then you think you're, like you're supposed to feel like great all the time, but actually one third of the time you will feel like crap. One third of the time will feel okay, and one third of the time you will feel great. And if you sometimes, have those moments of shit is hitting a fan, or you don't know, if this is gonna ever become big or not, then I think it's just one of those days where you just need to show up, and it's just one of those prep days. And there will be also better days, as part of the journey. And I think if you feel that, then it's also just showing that you're growing, and you're doing something which is just out of your comfort zone. But that again means also you're personally, growing as a person as well.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like entrepreneurship and building a business is so glamorized nowadays, but no one really understands how hard it is to go through it. And the days that you don't feel like doing anything, but you still need to show up, not just for your team, not just for your customers, but also just like for yourself as well. And it's a good reminder for people who are maybe not going through the best time, but there's always, something better to look forward to, as long as you just keep working hard at it and, keep it up.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I guess one last thing. Is there anywhere that people can find you that's listening to this or watching this right now, whether it's social media or your website?
Yeah, so our website, passionfruit.me, and passionfruit spelled with two O's. That's probably the best way. And obviously, otherwise, Jennifer Phan on LinkedIn or Twitter as well is where you can reach me.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I know we'll be in touch very soon.
Thank you so much.